Vietnam is a country that awakens fascination and mystery at every turn. Situated in Southeast Asia, its vibrant and varied landscape, together with an age-old history and a deeply rooted culture, make Vietnam a destination that captivates those who dare to explore it. From the bustling streets of Hanoi to the tranquil waters of Ha Long Bay, the country offers an intense journey, full of contrasts between tradition and modernity, between natural beauty and the weight of a turbulent past. In this first chapter, we will delve into the essential aspects that define life in Vietnam, exploring its geography, its unique history, and its vibrant culture, thus laying the groundwork to understand why it is considered one of the most exotic and mysterious countries in Asia. Vietnam's geography is as diverse as its people. Stretching from the mountains that border China in the north to the Mekong Delta in the south, the country is crossed by a variety of ecosystems that range from dense jungles to pristine beaches, from towering peaks to fertile plains. This natural wealth has not only sustained generations, but has also been a crucial component of Vietnamese identity, reflected in its customs and traditions. Northern Vietnam is dominated by the Tonkinese Alps, a mountainous region inhabited by various ethnic minorities, each with its own languages, clothing, and rituals. This cultural mosaic adds an extra layer of mystery and exoticism to the nation, with communities preserving their ancestral traditions amid landscapes of almost overwhelming beauty. The rice terraces in Sapa are an emblematic example of this coexistence between nature and culture, where arduous work on the hillsides creates a visual masterpiece considered an ancestral feat of agricultural engineering. Descending toward the central region, one finds historic cities such as Hue and Hoi An, which preserve architectural and cultural vestiges from imperial times, blended with European colonial influences and local traditions. Hue, the former imperial capital, is especially renowned for its citadel and the tombs of emperors, symbols of a Vietnam that once flourished amid political and social complexity. Hoi An, for its part, boasts a historic center designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a place where time seems to have stood still, with its cobblestone streets, colorful lanterns, and markets that invite one to lose oneself among exotic aromas and flavors. In the south, one encounters the dynamic city of Ho Chi Minh, formerly Saigon, which represents Vietnam's economic and modern heart. Here, skyscrapers stand alongside Buddhist temples, cafes sit beside motorbikes weaving through crowded streets, and markets sell everything from tropical fruits to traditional textiles. The Mekong Delta, one of the country's most fertile regions, is a complex fluvial landscape full of canals, islands, and floating villages where life unfolds in close connection with the water, giving rise to a unique and fascinating way of living. But Vietnam is not only a land of impressive landscapes, its history adds depth and mystery to its identity. For centuries, the country was the stage for numerous conflicts, invasions, and resistances that shaped its character. From the Chinese domination that endured for more than 1,000 years, to the French colonization that left its imprint on architecture and urban culture, passing through the struggle for independence and the wars that marked the 20th century, Vietnam has shown tenacious resilience and the capacity to reinvent itself. The Vietnam War, perhaps one of the most internationally recognized episodes, remains an open wound in the collective memory of the nation. However, beyond the wartime narratives, this experience has influenced Vietnamese culture, art, and worldview. Museums and monuments dedicated to this conflict not only recall the tragedy but also celebrate hope, reconciliation, and the strength of a people who have overcome adversity. This blend of pain and resilience is essential to understanding the mystery that surrounds Vietnam. Religion and traditional beliefs form another key piece of the Vietnamese puzzle. Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism coexist, integrating into a syncretic spiritual practice that permeates daily life. Temples and pagodas are ubiquitous not only as places of worship but also as cultural centers where values, stories, and rituals are transmitted. Vietnamese spirituality, deeply linked to nature and respect for ancestors, provides a symbolic framework manifested in festivals, architecture, and in the way people relate to their environment and to one another. One exotic tradition that stands out is the floating markets of the Mekong, where vendors barter from small boats laden with fruits, vegetables, and artisanal goods. These markets are living stages reflecting the close relationship between water and daily life, a phenomenon seemingly suspended in time that fascinates both locals and tourists. Walking through their improvised aisles is to immerse oneself in a world where the senses sharpen and where every exchange is a story, a gesture, a deep human connection. Vietnamese cuisine is another aspect that adds flavor and mystery to life in the country. Dishes such as pho, a traditional noodle soup with meat and fresh herbs, and banh mi, a sandwich mixing French and local influences, exemplify a cuisine reflecting Vietnam's history and cultural diversity. Food is not merely a necessity, but also an art form and a cultural expression, a bridge between past and present enjoyed in every corner of the nation, from street stalls to the most sophisticated restaurants. Finally, everyday life in Vietnam is marked by an intense rhythm, where work, family, and community intertwine in a constant dance. The streets buzz with activity from early morning until late at night, with people commuting by bicycle, motorbike, or on foot, street vendors offering all kinds of goods, and an energy that infects anyone who observes. This vitality, combined with the serenity of the temples and the majesty of nature, creates a unique atmosphere, inviting exploration, discovery, and wonder at every detail. Vietnam, with its mix of exoticism, mystery, history, and modernity, is much more than a country. It is an experience that challenges the senses and invites one to understand the complexity of Asia from a deeply human and authentic perspective. This first encounter prepares us to continue exploring in subsequent chapters the multiple facets that make Vietnam a fascinating and captivating place, where every corner hides a story and every face reflects a legacy worth knowing. Diving further into everyday life in Vietnam, we discover a country where ancestral traditions and modernity coexist in a constant dance, sometimes harmonious, sometimes tense, but always fascinating. To understand this coexistence, it is crucial to explore the social and cultural roots that shape Vietnamese daily life, their family organization, their values, and the ways they face the challenges of the contemporary world. The family occupies a central place in Vietnamese society. Unlike many Western cultures where the individual may hold primary importance, in Vietnam the collective prevails. Families are often extended, with several generations living under the same roof or very close to one another. Respect for elders is an essential norm permeating familial and social relationships, a principle rooted in Confucianism, a philosophy that has profoundly influenced the Vietnamese mindset. Elders are not only venerated, but also play an active role in decision-making and in transmitting traditions and values. In this context, the family structure extends beyond the biological nucleus to include neighbors, close friends, and community members. This network of relationships is vital for facing difficulties and sharing joyful moments, functioning as a support system that strengthens social cohesion. Family celebrations, religious ceremonies, and rituals are occasions where this communal sense manifests intensely, with ceremonies blending respect, spirituality, and joy, consolidating the bonds that unite people. Vietnamese women, despite traditional appearances, play a dynamic and multifaceted role in society. Historically, they have been pillars of both the family and agricultural labor, but have also been key figures in struggles for independence and in building modern Vietnam. Today, many Vietnamese women are entrepreneurs, professionals, and community leaders, although society still maintains certain conservative expectations regarding their role. This duality reflects the complexity of contemporary Vietnam, where progress coexists with deep-rooted traditions, sometimes generating tensions, but also opportunities for change and empowerment. Work is an element that marks the pace of life for most Vietnamese. In rural areas, agriculture remains the principal activity, with rice, coffee, tea, and rubber crops sustaining both the local economy and national exports. Farming is hard work requiring profound knowledge of the land and natural cycles passed down from generation to generation. Terrace cultivation, traditional fishing, and organic farming techniques reflect a respectful and sustainable relationship with the environment, although modernization and industrialization are gradually changing these practices. In cities, the labor landscape is very different. Accelerated economic growth has propelled industries such as technology, manufacturing, and tourism. Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City have become hubs of innovation and entrepreneurship, with young Vietnamese seeking new opportunities and adopting urban, modern, and globalized lifestyles. However, this development brings significant challenges, such as economic inequality, environmental pollution, and social stress, issues that contrast with the idyllic image many tourists have of the country. Urban life in Vietnam is a spectacle of constant movement. Streets are filled with motorbikes and bicycles weaving in a flow that may seem chaotic to the uninitiated. Street vendors with carts loaded with fruits, street foods, and artisanal products offer a unique sensory experience where smells, colors, and sounds merge in an urban symphony. This street vitality is also a space reflecting the inequalities and hardships many Vietnamese face, from precarious employment to lack of access to basic services in certain areas. The Vietnamese education system is another fundamental pillar for understanding society. With a rigorous and competitive approach, education is viewed as an essential path to social mobility and prosperity. Vietnamese students are known for their discipline and dedication, values instilled from childhood and forming part of the culture of effort. Despite resource limitations, the system has achieved outstanding results in mathematics, science, and literacy, reflecting the importance the country places on intellectual formation as a development driver. Spirituality and traditional beliefs remain a refuge and a meeting point for the Vietnamese. The blend of Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, and animism is evident in the multitude of festivals and ceremonies throughout the annual calendar. Events such as Tet, the Lunar New Year, are celebrations combining symbols of renewal, hope, and respect for ancestors, where families gather to clean their homes, prepare special meals, and participate in rituals meant to attract good fortune for the coming year. These moments hold not only religious meaning but also serve as spaces for social and cultural reinforcement. In the cultural realm, traditional Vietnamese music employs instruments such as the dan bao, a type of monochord, the dan trang, a 16-string zither, and the dan guyet, a moon-shaped lute, generating melancholic and evocative melodies. Folk dance and theatre, with their colourful costumes and symbol-laden stories, are artistic expressions that preserve collective memory and convey moral and social teachings. In contrast, younger generations also embrace modern genres like pop and hip-hop, creating a vibrant and ever-evolving cultural panorama. Beyond being delicious, Vietnamese cuisine reflects the fusion of tradition and change. Each region has its specialties. The north is known for milder, less spicy dishes, while the south is famous for more intense and sweet flavors. Fresh herbs, fish sauces, and the balance between crunchy and soft ingredients are distinctive characteristics, turning Vietnamese gastronomy into an art. Meals are often social events where family and friends gather to share varied dishes, reflecting the importance of social bonds in local culture. Finally, tourism has greatly transformed Vietnam's face in recent decades. Since the 1990s, with economic opening and the end of isolation, the country has welcomed a growing wave of visitors eager to discover its natural wonders, history, and culture. This has generated considerable economic impetus, but also challenges in terms of sustainability, conservation, and respect for local communities. Responsible tourism and eco-tourism are gaining ground, seeking to balance international appeal with the preservation of heritage and cultural authenticity. Vietnam is ultimately a country that defies expectations and seduces with its complexity. Between tradition and modernity, natural beauty and the harshness of history, spirituality and the frenetic pace of city life, a fascinating and multifaceted reality is built, one that invites exploration with respect and curiosity. Daily life here reflects this permanent tension where every gesture, every custom, and every landscape tells a unique story, a story still waiting to be discovered in its many chapters. Buddhism, introduced centuries ago, is not only practiced in temples and monasteries, but is also present in daily life. Vietnamese people carry with them a spirituality that combines Buddhist teachings with animist and Confucian traditions, creating a unique syncretism that guides behaviors, rituals, and everyday decisions. This spirituality influences everything from the way family and community are conceived to the respect shown for nature and ancestors. For example, it is common to find altars dedicated to one's forebears in homes where daily offerings are made as a sign of gratitude and to keep the connection between generations alive. But not all of Vietnamese history has been about resistance and spirituality. The French colonial influence left a visible mark on city architecture, cuisine, and certain customs. The streets of Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City feature buildings whose facades blend European styles with Vietnamese elements, reflecting a past in which East and West both met and clashed. Outdoor cafes, bakeries with baguettes, and well-kept parks are a legacy that local culture has adapted and made its own. This mixture of elements has created a singular identity that sets Vietnam apart within Southeast Asia. Cuisine is another living testament to this historic fusion. Dishes such as the banh mi, a sandwich made with French bread filled with local ingredients, symbolize that blend of traditions and adaptations that characterize the country. Furthermore, Vietnamese food is deeply tied to community and the celebration of life. Meals are often social events in which multiple dishes are shared, fostering dialogue and human connection. The variety of fresh ingredients, aromatic herbs, and culinary techniques passed down from generation to generation reflect the biodiversity and cultural richness of the territory. However, Vietnam is not only about history and tradition, it is also a country that has known how to adapt and reinvent itself in recent decades. Since the economic opening of the 1990s, known as Doi Moi, the country experienced accelerated growth that transformed its social and economic structure. This metamorphosis brought profound changes to the way of life for its inhabitants, giving rise to an emerging middle-class, urban development, and increasing integration into the global economy. Vietnamese cities are a crucible of contrasting energies. While modern skyscrapers and shopping centers rise in the heart of Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, traditional neighborhoods on their outskirts retain a slower pace of life and steadfast customs. This contrast is visible not only in infrastructure, but also in the mindset of the population, which oscillates between pride in progress and attachment to ancestral ways. Older generations often view these rapid changes with suspicion, whereas young people embrace modernity and globalization with enthusiasm. The impact of technology on Vietnamese life is undeniable. Access to the internet and mobile devices has radically changed communication, education, and commerce. Digital platforms, social networks, and apps have altered the way Vietnamese people relate to one another and to the outside world. This connectivity has fueled creativity and innovation, but also poses challenges related to cultural preservation and privacy. The balance between modernity and tradition grows ever more delicate and is redefined daily in the fabric of everyday experience. The transportation system likewise reflects this duality. Streets crowded with motorbikes and bicycles coexist with modern metro systems and roads under development. This constant flow of movement is a metaphor for Vietnamese life, chaotic yet organized, traditional yet modern, noisy yet underpinned by an underlying harmony. Urban mobility is both a challenge and an opportunity to connect communities and facilitate access to services, but it also generates pollution and safety issues that authorities are striving to address through innovative policies and projects. The role of women in this transformation is likewise crucial. In Vietnam, women have gained ground in education, work, and politics, though they still face inequalities and cultural challenges. Many lead entrepreneurial, artistic, and social initiatives that drive development and inclusion. In rural areas, their work is fundamental to agriculture and the family economy, and in cities they are active participants in the workforce and social movements. This evolution is slowly changing traditional perceptions and offering new opportunities for future generations. Moreover, the country's natural wealth is a decisive factor in Vietnamese identity. From the mountains of Sapa to Ha Long Bay, nature is a source of inspiration, sustenance, and national pride. Landscapes that combine jungles, rivers, and coasts attract tourists and scientists alike, interested in their biodiversity and unique beauty. This relationship with the natural environment is deeply rooted in cultural beliefs and practices, with a traditional respect for the land that nonetheless confronts the impacts of economic growth and urbanization. Vietnam's indigenous communities, located mainly in the mountainous regions, preserve traditions, languages, and lifestyles that contrast with dominant culture. Their forms of social organization, rituals, and connection to nature constitute an intangible heritage that faces threats but also receives increasing attention and protection. These groups add diversity and richness to the country's cultural mosaic, reminding us of the complexity and plurality that characterize Vietnam. Finally, contemporary art and pop culture are shaping new identities and expressions. Galleries, festivals, and cultural events emerge in cities, promoting a dialogue between the traditional and the modern. Young artists explore themes related to history, politics, and society, creating works that invite reflection and critique. This cultural dynamism indicates a nation that not only looks to its past, but also projects itself into the future with creativity and determination. Vietnam, with its blend of history, culture, modernity, and nature, offers an intense and diverse life experience. Every element, from ancestral traditions to contemporary innovations, contributes to a complex portrait that defies simplifications and stereotypes. Life in Vietnam is a journey where the exotic and the mysterious meet, revealing a nation that lives among contrasts and harmonies, and that invites discovery with respect and admiration. The final stretch of the journey through Vietnam reveals a society in full metamorphosis, where the tension between past and future is perceived in every street, every face, and every custom. Cities, countryside, mountains, and coasts share a common story written daily by the decisions, hopes, and challenges of their inhabitants. One of the most striking phenomena is the rapid urbanization the country is experiencing. Cities such as Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi grow at a dizzying pace, attracting thousands of people who migrate from rural areas in search of better opportunities. This massive exodus transforms the urban landscape and poses complex challenges, from urban planning to environmental management. Old neighborhoods blend with modern residential complexes, and traditional markets coexist with luxury shopping centers. This coexistence of old and new generates an urban dynamism that reflects Vietnam's changing soul. However, this transition is not without difficulties. The growing demand for housing and public services places pressure on infrastructure, causing congestion, pollution, and social inequality. Many families arriving in the city live in precarious conditions, working in informal jobs or in the manufacturing industry. These conditions contrast with the tourist image of the country, highlighting the socio-economic gaps that still exist. Although poverty has decreased in recent decades, it remains a challenge for inclusive and sustainable development. In this context, education and youth play a crucial role. Vietnam has a young and dynamic population, with a high literacy rate and growing access to higher education. Young Vietnamese are increasingly connected to the world, seeking new forms of expression, innovation, and social participation. Digital culture and social networks have become platforms for debate, creativity, and critique, reflecting a society that yearns for greater openness and plurality. These changes generate tensions with traditional structures and authorities, who try to find a balance between control and freedom. Contemporary Vietnamese culture is a constantly evolving mosaic. Pop music, cinema, and fashion reflect global influences, but also a quest to reaffirm local identities. Traditional festivals continue to be celebrated with fervor, while new cultural events emerge that attract both nationals and foreigners. This cultural diversity contributes to a sense of belonging and national pride, while simultaneously opening spaces for innovation and cultural exchange. The role of Vietnamese women in this transformation deserves special attention. Historically fundamental to family and economic life, today many women lead social, business, and artistic movements. However, challenges related to gender equality, access to opportunities, and full political participation persist. Vietnamese society is undergoing a reconfiguration of roles and expectations, where women are called to be agents of change without losing ties to their cultural traditions. On the other hand, Vietnam's relationship with its natural environment remains vital. Environmental awareness has grown in recent years in response to the impacts of accelerated development. Conservation and ecotourism projects seek to protect natural wealth and promote sustainable development. Vietnamese biodiversity, which includes unique species and fragile ecosystems, is a heritage the country strives to preserve for future generations. Environmental education and community participation become essential tools to achieve this goal. Tourism, in turn, has gone from being a marginal activity to one of the main sources of income. Vietnam attracts travelers interested in its history, culture, nature, and cuisine. However, the tourism boom also poses risks, such as overcrowding and loss of authenticity. Therefore, responsible tourism models are promoted that respect local communities and the environment. This awareness reflects a country that recognizes the importance of balancing economic growth with cultural and ecological preservation. Vietnamese cuisine remains a cultural cornerstone and a source of national pride. Beyond the international popularity of pho or bun cha, local cooking is a vast and diverse universe that varies by region and reflects the country's agricultural and fishing wealth. Traditional markets, with their colors, aromas, and sounds, are at the heart of this culinary experience where flavor, history, and community intertwine. In Vietnam, food is a form of cultural expression that brings families and friends together and serves as a symbol of national identity. Moreover, Vietnamese art and craftsmanship keep the connection to the past alive while exploring new forms. From ceramics to silk and from folk music to contemporary painting, Vietnamese artists combine ancestral techniques with modern influences to create works that reflect both tradition and innovation. This artistic dialogue mirrors Vietnam's complex identity, embracing its roots without renouncing the future. Politically, Vietnam faces the challenges of modernizing its institutions and maintaining stability in a globalized world. The one-party socialist system has shown adaptability and resilience, though it also generates internal and external debates about human rights, freedoms, and democratic development. Economic and social reforms seek to balance growth and equity, but the country must carefully navigate between its national objectives and international pressures. Everyday life in Vietnam is marked by a rhythm that blends tradition and modernity. Family remains the fundamental nucleus, where values, customs, and mutual care are transmitted. However, social changes have transformed family structures, creating new dynamics and challenges. Internal migration, urban work, education, and access to technologies change the way people relate, communicate, and envision their future. Ultimately, Vietnam is a country that surprises and captivates with its complexity and richness. From the beauty of its landscapes to the strength of its culture, and from stories of struggle to tales of perseverance, Vietnamese life is a mosaic of contrasts and harmonies. The mixture of the ancient and the new, the local and the global, the spiritual and the material creates a vital experience that defies expectations and stereotypes. This nation, known by many for its wars and conflicts, actually reveals a vibrant culture and a people full of hope and determination. Life in Vietnam is an invitation to explore beyond tourist postcards and delve into a world where every street, every aroma, every smile tells a unique story. In the end, Vietnam is not only an exotic and mysterious destination, but also an example of how societies can transform, adapt, and preserve their essence in a constantly changing world. Vietnam's story continues to be written, and its inhabitants keep building a future where the best of their past and present combine to create a rich and plural identity that resonates powerfully in the heart of Asia and the world.